these people, all of whom are by definition political operatives who know exactly how to work the media and how to stab people in the back and all the rest. It's just people jockeying for power. Politico breaks a juicy little story that young Republicans, there's a group called the Young, and I'm not just talking about young people who vote Republican. I'm talking there's the college Republicans, there's the Republican National Committee, there's a group called the Young Republicans. And it's what it sounds like. It's young Republicans, young professionals, and, operatives and activists and eccentric kind of people. They're in New York, Washington, and elsewhere. They're all in some group chat. And they're sending edgy, spicy memes, and they're making jokes about Hitler, and it's all like really edgy, spicy stuff. And reportedly, one of the young Republicans blackmails another one of the young Republicans into leaking the group texts to a liberal news outlet, Politico, that makes all the young Republicans look bad. What is this about? I will tell you what this is about, because I haven't heard a lot of people pointing it out, but because I've been in Republican politics since I was a teenager, because I've spent a lot of time around New York young Republicans in particular, because I grew up in New York and that's where I first worked in politics. It was my first campaign, my multiple campaigns. Everyone thinks, looking from the outside in, that this is about some ideological struggle and a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, and the whistleblower is blowing the whistle to the liberal outlet because he's so scandalized by the things that these young Republicans were saying, which we are told to believe, they sincerely believe, they're just one step away from brown shirts marching through, Reichstag fire or something, not instead, just young people making edgy jokes, as young people are wont to do. And this is what we're all told. I'll tell you what this is. And I don't have any firm proof of this. I've just been around this kind of thing, especially in New York, for a long time. I guarantee you, this is some personal beef among young Republicans. I bet you that's the heart of it. I bet you the heart of this is not about, the fight for the soul of the Republican Party. I bet you the heart of it is not that these people are sincerely, supporting Hitler or something. I bet it is a personal beef, people jockeying for power and position to figure who the next guy to run for state senator of Palookaville is going to be. I bet it is that. And these people, all of whom are by definition political operatives who know exactly how to work the media and how to stab people in the back and all the rest, it's just people jockeying for power. And the supposed ideological and moral battles that are taking place on the surface are nothing but a veneer for the political power position battles that are roiling underneath. That's what I think it is. And so, as an observer of politics, a participant in politics, I find this extremely interesting and titillating for that reason. In no small part because the whole thing, the leaking of the messages, I believe, is a kind of a theatrical production playing out in the national media as a cover for what is, to me, even more interesting, which is brutal power politics. I want this position in the club. I want this position in the national organization. I want to run for this congressional district. That's what I think. That's what I think it's about. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles. I want to invite you onto my bed. You've wondered about it for years. What would it be like to sleep with Michael? Well, I have the answer. Helix. You get your own Helix, you will know what it's like, okay? What makes Helix different is that it doesn't just sell you some random mattress. Helix matches you with the perfect mattress for your body and sleep style, whether you're a side sleeper, a back sleeper, or somewhere in between. They've got you covered. All you have to do is take their sleep quiz and find your ideal match. When you find the right match, you will wonder how you ever slept on anything else. For those of you who sleep hot, the temperature regulation is a complete game changer. It is just absolutely magnificent all times of the year. In fact, my two sons have Helix mattresses. And sometimes, even though, the mattress is built for the individual person, then sometimes you're like, ooh, it's kind of comfy too. Ooh, yeah, ooh, it's nice reading books at night. It's lovely. Right now is the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering a fantastic sale. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles, KNWLES, to get 20% off site-wide. That is helixsleep.com/Knowles, KNWLES, for 20% off site-wide. Make sure you enter my name after checkout so that they know that we sent you. helixsleep.com/Knowles. Now, What about the comments themselves? Which, I don't know. I got the article here. It's kind of long, but it's all this like jokes about Hitler and stuff like that. Should the New York young Republicans and the DC Republicans, should they be run out of town for this? Here is how the vice president weighed in.
By focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. I'm sorry. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. But there's another angle to this that I just have to be honest about. I mean, I'm like an old guy at this point. I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm. But the reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And at some point, we're all going to have to say, enough of this BS. We're not going to allow the worst moment in a 21-year-old's group chat to ruin a kid's life for the rest of time. That's just not okay.
So JD has been extremely consistent about this going throughout the campaign, throughout his political career. He says, look, young boys especially, but young people generally, they say stupid things, they make edgy jokes, they do this, and we shouldn't ruin people's lives because at 19, they made some edgy joke. And I think the vice president has a lot of credibility on this because often they'll make the jokes at his expense. So it's not that he's just saying, well, these guys are all my co-partisans. People are knocking him and they're throwing jokes at him. He says, yeah, look, but we don't want to grow up in a country where a 19, 20-year-old kid has his life ruined because he was joking around with his friends and trying to, outbaste the other one in a group chat or something. That's the question is, we got to make sure it's a joke. Obviously, you don't want people like actually, setting a Reichstag fire or something. But this is how young guys in particular behave. Obviously, the reason that Politico loves this story and the Democrats love this story is because they see it as an answer to Jay Jones. Remember Jay Jones? That he's left the news, hasn't he? Jay Jones, who is the attorney general candidate in Virginia. Jay Jones, who is not a 20-year-old kid, some nobody, unknown in a young political organization. Jay Jones is a state legislator who is running for attorney general of the top law enforcement official in Virginia, who said in group texts that he would murder his political opponent. And then when asked to clarify if he was joking, he doubled down on the sort of violent rhetoric. And he accused his opponent of breeding little fascists. He said that the birth of his Republican opponent's children constituted breeding little fascists. And he said that he wanted the children to die in their mother's arms. And it wasn't so much a ha, let's make an edgy joke about a brown shirt. And it wasn't a kid trying to impress his friends in the group chat. It was a Democrat legislator with the endorsement of the Democratic Party that has not lost a single endorsement in the Democratic Party, including the gubernatorial candidate, Abigail Spanberg, including the Senator Cory Booker, who made very clear he was not telling jokes. So that's what they think this is their equivalence. There's no equivalence whatsoever. And on the broader point of should we ever criticize anyone on our right or within the right, or should we just, say anyone who's fighting the left is great and I think that this whole debate is in many ways contrived and missing the point. If the question is, should there be guardrails in a political coalition? Yes, of course. All coalitions need guardrails because they need something to delineate what the coalition is. Duh. Yeah, of course there are going to be guardrails. Just as a nation needs a border, so too any political coalition, any coalition of any kind needs guardrails and features that distinguish between members and non-members. Yeah, of course. And is it possible that people who would call themselves on the right would undermine that coalition or would contradict the goals of that? Yeah, of course. Does anyone want Hitler on the coalition? No. So then to me, the more interesting question becomes, okay, yeah, we grant that in principle, there should be guardrails on a coalition. What should the line be? If some kid that no one's ever heard of is like making jokes to his friends in a group chat and he invokes, Mussolini or an Austrian painter or something like that, is that cause to kick the kid out of the party and ruin his life and get rid of his jobs? And no, I think obvious. I'm with the vice president on that. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. So then how do you come to what the guardrails are? How do you decide who gets in and who stays out of the coalition? And my answer to that is very simple. You do it very carefully. That's how. And you're going to think that's a cop-out. It's not a cop-out. This answer comes by way of no less a right-wing figure than Antonin Scalia. When I was a student, I got to meet Scalia a couple times. One of us in one of these meetings asked, how do you decide which cases we should just leave as decided law because of stare decisis? Which cases were so egregiously decided that we have to overturn them. Another example would be, how do you decide which sort of guns are permitted for ownership by the Second Amendment and which sort of guns would be beyond the pale? And Scalia's answer was delightful. He said, you decide it very carefully. Yeah, sorry, there's no 3-point manifesto that says this guy gets into the coalition and this guy has to stay out of the coalition. That's not how it works. This is a human endeavor. This is a team sport. This is a people business, okay? And in politics, the paramount virtue is prudence. And so we decide things very carefully. That's how. And sorry, we're not going to ruin people's lives because they told some edgy joke. We're not going to draw an equivalence between some kid trying to impress his girlfriend or something in a group chat by being or his buddies or whatever, trying to be kind of funny, and the would-be Attorney General of Virginia, who apparently quite earnestly and repeatedly and seriously fantasized about the murder of Republicans and our children. No equivalence between those things at all. That was a great clip. Now stop, ring the bell, subscribe. See you next time.